What's up, guys, and welcome to the Frost Mage 5.2 guide. Okay, there's a few things that you need to know about mages overall, and I'm going to cover them quickly. Right now, you can do some sim crafting. It's been kind of up and down over the last few days, especially now that mages just got a buff after the heroic raid just came out. Our dots got a 40% buff. Okay, so Nether Tempest, Living Bomb, and Frost Bomb all got 40% buffs. So what this means is we did get a nice buff. We're not going to complain about it. It does seem a bit overpowered just for a dot, from a dot perspective, but we'll see what they end up doing with that. They might lower it a little. We'll still wait and see. However, let's go over Frost Mage first. I'm going to do a Frost Mage guide and a Fire Mage guide. The reason that I am not going to do a Arcane Mage guide is because I hate Arcane Mage and all the changes that they've done to it. So get that out of the way now. For Frost, the biggest thing that you're going to want to do, obviously we're going to be using Frost Armor. Why? Because we want haste. We want ooey gooey nice big haste. That's just what we want. We also want int. This is one of the few classes that actually gems for intellect, okay? If you're going to play like an Arcane Mage or you're going to play a Fire Mage, you're gemming for pretty much Mastery or you're gemming for Crit. Whereas with a Frost Mage, haste is very, very good. But int scales all your spells so much better, and because of how hard hitting your spells are, the more int the merrier. The only time you're not going to be gemming int is for the socket bonus. So let's take a look real quick at a piece, just to, as you can see here on this heroic waste that I had from Toes. What we're doing here is, you see how I have the int, okay? I have, because it's a mastery bonus. I don't care at all about mastery. As a Frost Mage, mastery is pretty much your worst stat. So what you're going to be wanting to do is you're going to be wanting to gem, obviously, int, hit to cap, haste, crit to 28%, and then mastery. There is some debate on whether you want to go higher than that with crit after that and then to mastery, but as of right now, that's pretty much the common knowledge of how you're going to be speccing your class, okay? So what you're going to be doing is obviously int hit gems if you have a blue socket. Red gems obviously are going to be the int gems, and yellow sockets are going to be the int haste gems. That's really your goal. The higher the haste, the better. However, like I said, int is still better than haste. So as you'll see, there's going to be a lot of trinkets that are dropping in this new patch that you're going to want to play with. Okay, there's a lot of very good trinkets in this patch that you're going to want to play with. And a lot of the gear in Throne of Thunder has crit on it and it has hit on it. That's cloth. A lot of it does, guys. So you're hitting that crit cap is not going to be an issue. You're going to scale very, very nicely in this tier. As a Frost Mage, you just are. If you're going after crit haste gear and hit crit gear, you're going to be more than fine. Try to stay away from the haste mastery gear or the crit mastery gear. Again, go through the dungeon journal, look at all the gear, make yourself a BIS list, go through the world bosses, see if there's anything in there that you need, and go through it that way. Frost scales extremely, extremely well. That's one of the biggest things that you'll see is they changed the spell power scaling for Frost, and it really does feel really nice now. So let's go through talents. They again did change this. Okay, so we have Ice Flows, Blazing Speed, and Presence of Mind. Ice Flows and Presence of Mind are pretty much the two that you're going to use here. If you really don't have to move at all, like I just can't see a fight where you don't have to move at all. Okay, but Presence of Mind is technically a single target DPS increase if you're not moving, because it's an instant frostbolt. Okay, Ice Flows is what I use. The reason is they lowered the cooldown to 45 seconds. You can cast while moving, so as you can see here, if I pop that, I am now going bam, I can cast on the move, bam, I can cast on the move, 2 spells. Okay, and the way that Frost works and the buffs that they've given to Fingers of Frost procs, your movement isn't as inhibited as it used to be. Okay, you've got your dot to keep up, you've got your Ice Lance that you can throw out there, yada yada yada. So you do have spells that you can use on the move, especially if you're getting a lot of procs. You will be able to move and cast and not really lose a whole lot of your rotation. So how to work in Ice Flows is really going to make the difference between a lot of good Frost Mages and a lot of great Frost Mages, is knowing, okay, I need to move here. Okay, are all of my instant cast spells like on cooldown? Do I not have any Ice Lances? Do I not have any Frostfire Bolts? Do I not have any Nether Tempest? Okay, I'm popping my Ice Flows. I'm Frost Bolting while I move. Hopefully I get some procs. If not, while I'm sitting there, I'm the only thing I can really cast is Ice Lance and refresh my dot, right? Okay. The next one, we did get Flame Glow. This is actually a really nice talent for passive abilities. Depending on what fight you're doing, I still really like Temporal Shield. I really like the heal from it, and it's off the GCD, so I can pretty much pop it whenever I want, and it's okay. Pet, you need to calm down a little bit here. Okay. Obviously, Ice Barrier, if you have a ton of damage, like for me, Quills. Quills is a huge one, and soaking those pools on G-Kun. I love Ice Barrier for this fight. The reason is it absorbs a ton of the quill damage, and also if you're absorbing those green slime puddles on the ground, Ice Barrier is really nice with that. So that's why I use this spell for that fight. But again, I haven't really used Flame Glow a whole lot just because I like to know that if I need a shield, I can call on it. Flame Glow is a passive. So it's iffy for me. Okay, your next one obviously is your CC chain. Your next row obviously now these got buffed. Okay, Greater Invisted and Cauterize is always good. I like Cauterize just because it allows me to have the oh crap button. You know what I mean? Like if I accidentally mess up, I can, if I'm Cauterizing an Ice Block and normally get healed back up. It might cost me some DPS, but at least I'm not a dead DPS. Okay. Nether Tempest, Living Bomb, Frost Bomb. Remember, Living Bomb, you can put it on 3 targets. When it explodes, it will hit 3 targets. So if you do have a ton of adds that are together, being able to put this on 3 different targets is viable. Okay. But again, if you have more than, pretty much if you have 3 targets or 4 targets, Living Bomb is good. If you have 5 targets or more, you're going Frost Bomb. And if you have your 1 or 2 targets, you're going Nether Tempest. Nether Tempest, for pretty much the most part, wins because it hits like an absolute truck now. Nether Tempest will do probably most of your damage on damn near every fight. There's just no way around it with the 40% buff. It's just going to happen. So get used to that. Get used to loving Nether Tempest. It will make your DPS amazing. You need to keep that, especially now with the changes, you need to have 100% dot uptime. That is essential. The closer you are to 100% dot uptime, the higher your DPS is going to be, plain and simple. There's no 2 ways around it, okay? Your level 90 talents. This also gets interesting for Frost. Incanter's Ward with the nerf to invocation percentage. Remember, it's only 15% now. It's a lot quicker of a cast, as you can see right there. Bam, that's how quick it was, okay? However, I still use invocation for most fights. Incanter's Ward, remember, you get the passive 6% spell damage, okay? Passive. However, if you can pop that right during some incoming damage, you buff it up to 30. So there's been a ton of theory crafting on this of which one's better. And honestly, once you get used to fights, I honestly think Incanter's Ward may take over, especially on fights with really high raid-wide damage. Fights like Megara, fights like G-Kun, where you can take some really high, intense damage. Jinrock right off the start, standing in the pools. There's just a lot of fights where you can really see the damage that you're taking really benefit from Incanter's Ward. The problem is being used to the fights enough to where you can really utilize your Incanter's Ward, because if you can utilize it correctly, there's not a lot of fights where this technically isn't the best. However, I stick with Invocation while I'm learning fights, especially just because I want to know positioning. I don't exactly know when all the damage is coming, which abilities will trigger my Incanter's Ward and which ones won't. So I typically will stick with Invocation for a little bit. Okay, that's just the way that I work, because I like to be safe. Rune of Power is crap. You don't really need it. Again, there's not really that many fights where you're standing still. There's really not. You can get away with using it, but again, remember, the damage increase is 15%. So it's the same as Invocation, but you don't have to stand in it. You can move wherever you want. Why in the hell would you use it? Exactly. You wouldn't. So don't do it. Glyphs. Let's go to Glyphs. Ice Lance. Completely essential 100% on any fight that may have an ad ever. Okay, there's really no reason to ever unglyph this. Even if you're on a single target fight, there's really not a better option for you. I mean, there might be a little bit, obviously, if there's nothing else in the room ever that comes out, but if there is ever anything else in the room, this glyph is amazing. Another one, Glyph of Water Elemental. He can cast on the move. This is key. Your pet does a ton of damage. As you saw earlier, he can hit for 60, 70k, no problem with raid buffs. I've seen him hit harder. That's not a big deal. Okay. Evocation, this is another one that I like, again, because I like to be able to passively heal myself, even if it is only 10%. Okay. There are a couple other ones in here that you may want to be aware of. and that one is Icy Veins. There's a lot of still theory crafting going on with this, especially with the way that haste scales and the amount of haste that we get. Just remember, it turns kind of everything into arcane missiles, so to speak, is the easiest way to think about it. It just splits your spells up into smaller, but they do a little bit more damage. It's up to you, okay? It really doesn't affect me either way. They're still kind of debating it right now. Armors is always okay. Arcane Explosion is always okay. Arcane Explosion is really probably your go-to. But again, I like knowing that if I'm ever in a complete pickle, I can actually at least get a nice little heal off. So that's really one of the nice things with that. Okay. Now let's go through real quick. Did anything really change with the Frost Mage? Well, the only thing that did is, as you'll see, this is our Pet's Freeze, right? No longer does it proc ourselves a Fingers of Frost. Okay, it just doesn't do it. Why doesn't it do it? Blizzard fixed that. It does not work on raid bosses. It does work on some ads, so you really do need to go through the fights and play with this to see which ads this will work on and which ads it will not work on. Again, this is going to be a huge, because it's a waste of a global cooldown, essentially, is what you're doing. However, still kind of the same rotation. As your pull counts down, you're going to go 3, 2, 1. You're slamming a Frost Bolt, you're slamming your dot, you're slamming your Frost Bomb, and then you're just spamming. You're getting to your 3 stacks. This is what we're looking for. As soon as we get that next Fingers of Frost proc, there it is. We're popping our Icy Veins, and then bam. Our dot fell off, so we want to refresh that, but bam, 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 and then it resets. Boom, boom. So we got all that quick burst damage. The nice thing with Frost is, again, it's really, really good burst damage. It's insanely good cleave damage. But that's really the biggest thing, is we are extremely, extremely good at any kind of cleave fight, and we are extremely, stop it, Bet, and we are extremely, extremely good at high segments of burst damage. I've training dummied 150, 160k during a burst phase if I get my procs right, my crits right, and all my trinkets right. Again, the biggest thing that you want to do is make sure that you're, keeping an eye on all those things. Are all my trinkets up when I'm procking my alter time? Am I pre-potting? Do I have hero, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of things that you need to keep an eye out for, okay? The other thing that Frost Mages do bring to the table, we do have some utility, okay? We can freeze things, we can slow things. Remember that our Frost Bolt does slow movement speed, okay? It's automatic movement speed slow with our main filler. That's a good thing to have, guys. The other thing that you need to know is, obviously, we're making sure our evocation's up, make sure our dot's up, make sure we're throwing out our frozen orb on cooldown, filling with Frostbolt, using our procs when they come up, popping our alter time and our Icy Veins when the proper time comes. So when we have at the beginning of the fight, we have all our cooldowns up. If there's big burst damage phase coming, if there's a lot of ads that need to die quickly, we can do all these things, guys. We are great at utility. And you will honestly see higher numbers if you are in charge of, say, cleaving or, killing mobs or killing ads that come out. You will see really, really high DPS numbers through those Ice Lance buffs and through the Fingers of Frost proc buff. Because remember, it's hitting like an absolute truck, and it's hitting 2 targets now, and it's hitting for 10% harder. So it's really, really key. Always remember, you do have your mirror images, which are technically still a slight DPS increase. They're not huge. They did get a little bit of a buff, but they are still pretty much meh, okay? So don't worry about those. Guys, that's the main part of the Frost Mage. It's really getting used to the fights, knowing when you can move, and mastering ice flows. That's the biggest thing. If you do go to WoW Heroes and Armory, my guy, you will see that last night on Horadon. And again, I think I'm in 510 item level. Yeah, I just hit 510 item level. But I did number 1 in the world Mage DPS Frost Mage. Now, we did have a couple stacks of that buff from the LFR wipes from groups before us, but you guys, it's really amazing how much this scales, okay? You will see some really, really insane numbers as Frost once you're doing it right. Again, Frost is really going to top your meters. As a mage, it's going to be your number 1 DPS spec until you get to best in slot or above 525 gear level, and I'm not kidding, that's how far. So if you're planning on just doing normal modes, stick with Frost, because you are going to be happy. You're going to be topping any other mage. If you're Frost and they're another spec, you just will pull more DPS. It's hard not to, unless you went into somebody who's extremely, extremely talented at playing Fire or Arcane. it doesn't matter. Technically, if you're playing at the same level that they are, you will pull better numbers because it's just the way that SimCraft works. This is the best spec right now. Like I said, until you get hit item level 530, 525, then Fire and Arcane really come back up, okay? Just with the way that they scale with stats. You're going to see that at the end of the patch more, but as for right now, probably stick with Frost for a while. You're going to be safe. You're going to be happy. You're going to be enjoying your numbers. And as always, we were worried about mages, but we're doing okay. Hope you guys like this one. See you in the next one.